We live in Southwest Ontario, which means we all grew up playing trick-taking card games and love the fact that so many publishers are putting new trick-taking games out on the market.
Welcome to episode 290 of the Tabletop Bellhop Gaming Podcast, Tricks and Trumps, where we'll be sharing our favorite modern trick-taking games, specifically some games we've discovered in the last few years. In addition, we'll be talking about the games we played since we last recorded, and what I think you're going to want to care about there is our first thoughts on SETI from CGE. SETI, the Search for Intelligent Life. That's not even what SETI stands for. Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. That's it. Sorry, had that wrong.
And then we're going to wrap up with two reviews of a couple of trick takers that we've been playing a lot of lately, and that's Lunar Skyline from Dead Alive Games and Origin Story from Stonemaier Games.
First, we should introduce ourselves. I'm Sean, your host, and with me is Deanna.
Hello to all the bellhop boarders.
It hasn't been that long that you forget Deanna's name.
And of course,
I am Mo Tuzano, the Tabletop Bellhop, your cardboard concierge, helping you make your game nights better.
We like to record Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, live at twitch.tv/Tabletop Bellhop, and we love it when people join us in the lobby, our chat room.
Okay, now on to some housekeeping. First up, disclosure. Wherever you're watching or listening to this, any links you see are most likely going to be affiliate links. And when you use one of our affiliate links, it costs you nothing extra and helps to support the show.
And speaking of supporting the show, I'd like to point out that this episode exists in part due to the support of our awesome Patreon patrons. We got a couple new ones since we were last year. And if you'd like to join that elite crew, you can do so at patreon.com/tabletopbellhop. One word.
And last up, let's talk about show notes. If you head to our website, we have show notes, and that's where you can find links to absolutely everything we talk about in this episode. Just head over to tabletopbellhop.com/episode 290.
If you aren't local, you can skip past these quick announcements. This is for those of you in the Windsor, Detroit area, or those of you willing to drive a little bit from, say, Chatham.
So our next Brews and Board Games game night at the Walkerville Brewery is scheduled for Thursday, December 18th from 5 to 9 p.m. Auntie Aldu will be joining us again for those of you who prefer coffee or other hot beverages to beer. I think the hot chocolate's going to be pretty popular based on the way the weather's been around here. Now, there is no cost to attend this event, but we do ask that you support the venue and please no outside food or drink.
Up next after that is going to be our next pop-up board game cafe at Hidden Trail, where Alex will be joining us again, but this time she's also bringing awesome gaming-themed treats. We're still going to have plenty. Right now, we still have plenty of seats available for this one, and you can find out more and pick up tickets at tabletopbellhop.com/hidden.
Coming up on January the 6th, we have our second ever ProtoWIN Game Designer Night at Hidden Trail, and we're looking for both game designers and folks interested in playtesting games to attend. That is another free event that runs from 5 till 9 p.m. The Tabletop Bellhop team is here to answer your gaming and game night questions.
So tonight's question comes from local Windsor gamer Jess Seuss, who was chatting with me at our recent board game bazaar that we hosted at the Hidden Trail Experiences. And he noted that we had a trick-taking game up for sale. And he was like, hey, what other modern trick takers have you discovered recently? What have you been playing? What are the best ones you played this year? And I thought that would be a really cool topic to expand. And of course, I gave Jeff my answer. But I figured this would be worth sharing with all of you because we have discovered a surprisingly large number of trick takers in like the last few years, like last 5 years, probably even last 2-3 years. So I thought it was time to revisit.
Yeah, so Mo and I started talking about this. We're like, we've definitely covered this topic before, right? But it was way back on episode 133. So in that time, a few more games have come out. That episode was called That's the Trick, but that was like 5 years ago. So now seems like a good time to revisit the topic as we have discovered quite a few great new trick takers over that time.
Before we get to our recommendations, just in case anyone is confused by the term trick-taking, here's a quick overview. It is a traditional style of card game, like something you'd find in Hoyle's Guide, played with standard cards. Bridge or euchre are probably the most well-known, but there's also spades, hearts, and more, as well as many modern variants.
So a trick-taking game is played in a series of tricks. A trick is one card played by each player after another. When everyone's played one card, one player wins that trick and collects the cards played. The goal is usually to win more tricks or specific tricks depending on the game you're playing.
In general, the highest played card of the first played suit is going to win each trick. But in most games, there is also something called a trump suit. And that is the suit that's most powerful that round. And any trump card will beat out any of the other suits. And if multiples are played, the highest trump wins.
And just in case you think it's political, it's actually short for triumph. Another term used in some areas is rough card. Now, from there are all kinds of variations. A common one being adding bidding to the game. Something I'm not a fan of, actually, but this is where you have to predict in advance how many tricks you're going to win. Sometimes there are special rules as to when the trump cards can be played, as well as various different rules for following the lead, and so on.
And one of the reasons I think there are so many different trick-taking games out there is the fact that this basic system is so easy to play with and modify. Now, going forward, we're just going to assume you now know terms like trick and lead and following suit and trump and what all that means. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask questions at tabletopbellhop.com, and we can clarify anything. But honestly, like quick Google of trick taking or pick up any modern trick taking, and I'm sure it'll explain the basics.
All right, well, as usual, this list is going to be in no particular order. But first up, we have Lunar Skyline from Dead Alive Games, our most recently played. Set in the same universe as Lunar Rush, their most popular game.
So the big thing, the big selling point to this game was that every single card has 2 suits, not 1. There are 6 total suits in the game. This is a bidding-based game where thematically you're trying to build buildings. You're trying to collect tricks that match the suits of your bid. So if I bid a green card, say it has 2 symbols on it, like humans and robots, every human and robot card I collect gets me points. If you hit your bid, you get to collect these bonus cards for additional points. Now, that is a neat twist on trick taking. But another thing this game introduced that I actually think is fascinating, because I've never seen this in any other trick taking game, and I played a lot, is a rule called smuggling. And what that is when you can't follow suit. Normally you can throw an off card. Well, instead of throwing an off card, now you smuggle it and it becomes a winning trick for you. Just the 1 card. And I thought that was really fascinating. The combination of the 2 suits with that has made this a lot of fun. Now we're going to share more thoughts later in this episode. So stay tuned for a full detailed review of Lunar Skyline later tonight.
All right, well, next we have one I was hungry for. Origin Story from Stonemaier Games, a superhero-themed trick taker. 5 hands to tell your origin story. Get a hand of 3 powers, choose 1, pretty standard trick-taking rules, 4 suits, 1 love is always trump because love trumps all. Instead of bidding, you choose if you want to be a hero collecting as many tricks as you can, or a villain taking no tricks at all. Now, the fascinating thing here is the ridiculous number of power cards in the game, which modify the rules. There's also an aspect of resource management with having to activate most powers with stamina. We were really looking forward to this, and much like the last game, we're going to be reviewing this in detail after this. And next up, we've got Sandbag from Bezier Games. The theme here is that you are in a hot air balloon competition, and the cards represent sandbags holding you down.
So this is a trick taker that turns things a bit upside down. It uses golf scoring, by which I mean you want the least number of points, which means you want to take as few tricks as possible. Each round starts with players building a 2-card basket for their hot air balloon, and what people pick for their basket is going to set the trump for that round. Then as you're playing, instead of playing a card from your hand, you can choose to play out of another player's basket. Cards that are left in your own basket at the end of the round count against you. Well, they give you points, but you don't want points, right? So overall, Sandbag is just this really thinky game where each hand feels like a puzzle where you're trying to figure out the optimal moves to score as little as possible.
Yeah, this one I would say is like the trick-taking game for Euro game fans. I don't know. There's a lot going on in that game and a lot of tactics and strategy and playing things out. And there's always surprises. And the trump can change between tricks, like during the same hand, not in the middle of a trick, but between tricks. Because once you use cards from a basket, you have to reevaluate what has the most. I am really fascinated by this one. This is the one that I've been selling to the local heavy gamers, and they've all fallen in love.
All right, well, howl if you want some more, because we have Lone Wolves from Wonderful World Board Gaming.
So this is a 2-player only trick-taking game that reminds me of Shot and Totten or Battle Line or Lost Cities, but with trick-taking. You have a board with 5 regions in front of you, matching the 5 suits of the game. Every player is going to play cards on their side of the table, and at the end of the game, you're going to work out the value of each side, and the player with the highest total is going to get a victory point token for that region. The neat bit here, though, is every time you lose a trick, you play a lower card than your opponent, you have to flip your card over to the 1 side. So it only counts as a 1, even if you played like a 6. But you also get the scar token that's on there, and you can place this on any region. These break the rules in some way or give you new scoring opportunities. And what's fun about this is sometimes you can actually get more points from your scar tokens than reading regions. So it's a lot of strategy on whether you should win or lose tricks. Now, when all tokens are gone from a region, that color becomes trump. And that can happen to a second region. This is a fascinating, again, rather thinky 2-player trick-taking experience that I strongly recommend.
All right, well, the game with one of the most wild themes, even if it is utterly immaterial to the gameplay, we have Xylotar from Bezier Games. This trick-taker where you can't see your own cards, sort of. Each round, the player on your left organizes your card in order. Then you lay them out in front of you, building a xylophone-like keyboard where each key color represents a range of numbers, so that you know the order of your cards, but you need to figure out their exact value. This is also a bidding game where at some point you need to pick 2 cards from in front of you and pick 1 as your bid. It's very unique and clever, but does take up a lot of room for a card game.
Xylophones are big.
Yeah, half-size cards, but once you put out your whole hand, it gets a little ridiculous.
Well, next up, we've got some sci-fi fun with Arcs from Letter Games. This game combines trick-taking with sci-fi 4X gaming.
A pretty unique twist on trick-taking. Each round, players are playing cards from their hand to take actions. The lead card for the round determines the action to be taken, and the value of the cards determine how many times you get to take that action, with low cards giving you more actions. If you win the trick, that's going to give you the lead for next round. On top of that, the player setting the lead can also determine what will score at the end of the round. Is it a trick-taking game? It's a 4X area majority game with trick-taking mashed in. This isn't as much card play in it as the other trick-takers are talking about, but the mechanics and then the physical hand of cards, like that's still there.
Well, next
to me, I like to cross over that one with Lost Ruins of Arnak. A lot of people argue Lost Ruins of Arnak's not really deck building. And I'm like, yeah, well, there's enough deck building there. I still think it's a deck builder, and Arcs is not really trick taking, but there's enough trick taking there that I still wanted to include it on the list, even just because it's so unique.
Next up, we've got Nokosu Dice by Sai Beppu, a trick-taking game that combines cards and dice.
So at the start of each round, after everyone gets a hand of cards, you roll a bunch of D6 dice that match the colors of the suit. Players then draft these dice. Now, once you have a die, it's just another card in your hand. It works exactly the same. If it's a red 3, it counts as a red 3. If it's a yellow die that shows a 6, it counts as a yellow 6. Now, 1 die will be left after drafting, and that becomes the trump. But trump is both the number on the die and its color. So if it's a 1 yellow, all the 1s are trump and all the yellows are trump, which takes a bit to get your head around. Now, while playing, you're going to use your dice along with your cards until you're down to 1 die. Well, that becomes your bid for how many tricks you're going to take. This is honestly the heaviest trick-taking game I have played. It can become quite the brain burner. It feels very different than Sandbag, but it's got that real deep tactical, strategic reacting to what's going on. The only problem is getting a copy of this game. Right now, this game is only being published in Japan, and I know a whole bunch of North Americans who went to Tokyo Game Show Game Fair a couple weeks ago and brought copies back just so they could get them for their friends or sell them online. So good luck getting a copy, but I think this one is worth seeking out if you can find it.
All right, well, next up, inspired by Nokosu Dice, from designer Pete Wissinger, is Crits and Tricks from Inside Up Games.
So yeah, Pete was inspired by Nokosu Dice and created Crits and Tricks, and it combines trick-taking with D&D dice, but really it's nothing like Nokosu, except that it's combining cards and dice. In Crits and Tricks, your cards have no values on them. Every time you play a card, you pick out one of your pre-rolled dice from behind a screen to become the card's value, or you can take a chance and re-roll a die. The suit of the lead card determines how each round is going to score, And players also have personal goals that they're trying to accomplish during each hand. I really dig that part. We got to try a pre-release copy of this game out at Adam, and I was completely smitten with it. It has already successfully funded as a Kickstarter, and I think it should be hitting retail early in the new year.
Yeah, this is a must pick up for us. Like this was one of the most enjoyable twists on trick taking I've had in a long time. No, coming as an RPG fan who loves RPG dice and funky polyhedrals.
Well, coming at us from Grandpa Beck, we've got Skull King, one of Grandpa Beck's games.
This is Grandpa Beck's most popular game, and honestly, one of the most popular trick takers with the hobby board game crowd. I think it's the highest rated on Board Game Geek, or it's very close to it. This is a very punishing bidding game where you get nothing if you don't hit your bid. There were 4 standard suits that play as normal, but all kinds of special cards. And all the special cards beat all the basic cards. It's kind of like all the specials trump everything. But then it's kind of funky because pirates beat all of the main cards, but mermaids beat pirates. But then there's the Skull King. The Skull King beats all the pirates, but loses to mermaids. There's sails that let you throw a trick and more. This is a game with a bit of learning curve, but honestly, once you get a group that knows how to play it, this is a fantastic game. It's a longer trick-taking game. You're going to play 10 rounds if you're playing a full game. There's an expansion out. There are variants to play. If you enjoy trick takers at all, you need to try Skull King at some point. If it's not something you pick up yourself, at least try someone else's copy. Now, saying that, we also have a 15% off discount code. If you go to Grandpa Beck's website, just enter code BELLHOP, save 15% so you can try Skull King cheaper.
I would say, though, if, like me, bidding isn't your thing, be warned when it comes to Skull King. You're not going to... Bidding is very powerful in that game. Next up...
Yeah, but it's a very punishing bidding system.
Next up, the first installment of a trilogy, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings trick-taking game from Office Dog.
This is one of the most thematic trick-taking games we've ever played. It's based on the first book of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and there is a set for the second book that's supposed to be coming out soon. The neat part here is how you pick a character to play for each hand, and which characters you choose for your party determines your goals for each game. Mm-hmm. It's a cooperative campaign game that slowly introduces new rules and card types and twists as you go through each chapter of the game. There are a lot of neat things going on here, and I don't want to get into spoilers, but I will say this is by far the best cooperative trick taker we've ever played.
All right, well, one of my faves on the list is The Crew, Mission Deep Sea from Cosmos. The last time we talked about trick takers 5 years ago, we had The Crew as an honorable mention. Well, since that time, we not only picked up the game, but played a large number, many of which being through Board Game Arena. Now, this is another fantastic cooperative trick taker where each game you pick a mission that sets your goals. Limited communication rules really make this game work. And the most recent version of The Crew is Mission Deep Sea, which is actually ranked higher than the original, both, though, being in the Board Game Geek Top 100.
I would have said The Crew is the best cooperative game if I hadn't played Lord of the Rings.
I find them very close, but Lord of the Rings, you get those asymmetric character powers, and I dig that.
All right, well, this next one is about quantum physics. So instead of being in a hat, you've got Cat in the Box from Bezier Games.
So yeah, this is based on the whole Schrodinger's cat thing because the cards in the game have no suit until they're played. And I think that is fascinating. When you play a card, you decide what suit you want it to be, but it can't be any card that's already been declared. This is a bidding game, so I'm sure Sean wouldn't be a big fan of this one, but it requires a lot of strategy and tactics. Unfortunately, I wish I could tell you more about this game. Sadly, we only played one game of this at Origins. We played through a full game. And it's one I really hope to pick up for myself. Like, this is on my 2026 goals, is to get a copy of Cat in the Box. And it's the deluxe edition is now like the standard edition you get. This one is from Bezier Games. I was really fascinated by this one. This was another thinkier trick-taking game. A little less casual and a little more strategy and tactics. And this is one of the few where planning ahead really seemed to make a difference.
All right, well, wrapping up our list with a little local flavor, we've got La Casa from Roger Dodger Games.
This is a Mafia-themed trick-taking game that kind of feels like a bunch of other trick-taking games all tossed into one. It uses a unique deck with 2 4s, and 2 6s, as well as 1 0 card. The basic game is very euchre-like, but the best parts here are the challenge cards, which give new rules and ways to score each round. One round, you may be trying to collect tricks with mooks, which are the 1s and 2s in the decks. And then the next round, it's a player who took the least tricks that's going to score. It's from a local designer, and you can pick up a copy of this via GameCrafter.
Well, I was actually really impressed with this one. Like sitting down and playing it, there was a group at our event that played through the entire challenge deck at our last ProtoWIN game design
Like,
night.
I don't know, it was like 13 games, 20
I think
games.
it's more than that.
They were at it for a while.
All right, well, that's it for our list of modern trick takers that we are really enjoying right now. What card games have you hooked right now?
Yeah, so leave a comment, send us a DM, fire off an email, mo@tabletopbellhop.com, or most importantly, what we love the most is if you post something over on our Discord, which you can find at discord.tabletopbellhop.com.
If you do have a question for us to answer, you can email questions@tabletopbellhop.com, or you can go over to the website and click on Ask the Bellhop, or you are always welcome to hit us up on social media, where you can find us pretty much everywhere as Tabletop Bellhop, one word.
Welcome to the Bellhop's Tabletop, where we talk about the games that we've been playing and other cool stuff going on.
So we're going to stick to mainly games because we did have a bunch of local events that all are going really well. Thank you, locals, for coming out. We are now regulars at the Walkerville Brewery. We still have a monthly event. Every month we have a game night there. And that has already been continuing into Q1 next year, which is pretty awesome. And we are now working more with Hidden Trail Experiences to do events there. With a pop-up board game cafe coming up, as well as, we've had a pop-up board game cafe in just this weekend, a Bazaar. But I don't think anyone wants to hear about that except for the Windsor locals, but just to say those have been going really well. Getting to the games we personally played, up first, we've got Origin Story. We just called that out in our top new to us deck builders. Wow. Trick-taking games. We just called that one out. This is a superhero origin story trick taker from Stonemaier. Wasn't what we expected. We didn't share any thoughts on last time. But we'll get into that later because we're going to do a full review in the next segment. But we played a lot of games of Origin Story. Like, this doesn't happen often, right? Like, we usually have a big lead time. A review copy shows up and it goes in the pile of obligation and we get to it sort of in fight forward. Well, no, we were too excited. We couldn't help it. We got Origin Story open, and the day it showed up, I had it open. And I think the next day we played. So we kind of jumped the line on this one because we were so hyped about it.
Yeah, I was super hyped. I had expectations for this game, and like, it didn't crash and burn. It's not a bad game in any way, but it just wasn't what I was expecting.
Yeah, as the resident Supers fan, was super eager to get this to the table, but I would say my initial expectations misled me. It wasn't the game that I had thought I was sitting down to. Now, I've played it a few times now, it's settled expectations, so stay tuned and see what we really think about it later in the show.
Next, oldness. Castles of Mad King Ludwig. This is a classic, I would say, at this point. We broke this one out because we had someone request a game for our last pop-up board game cafe. So I was like, man, I think I know how to play that game. I need a refresher. And my plan was just to read the rule book. But you know what? We had a game night at Brenda's. I'm like, let's bust it out. Let's play. I remember it was pretty quick. And yeah, it was quick to learn, quick to play. The one thing that shocked me is it is literally 2 pages of rules. Well, 2 double-sided pages. It's one fold-out sheet. And I'm like, man, you just don't see games with that little rules. And that game's got like a lot going on with lots of different rooms and scoring opportunities. And I'm like, man, it just there's something elegant about that game. And it was kind of cool. This does have a box insert, so it does prove that maybe if you put your game in a box insert, it will get played again. It just might take 10 years or so.
I think
No, it was nice because the box insert also let us sort everything out. So we sat down and played and everything was mixed in. We got to sort out the secrets and secret passages expansion and the swans and all that out so that when we did bring it to our event, it was just good to go.
I think the last time I played this, it wasn't our copy. I played it at Breakout with Danielle Danielle and Owen, and I was like, I know that game, I can teach it. And then I tried to teach it and I butchered it so badly. It's amazing they're still talking to me. And so when you were like, someone requested this game, I'm like, what I remember about that game is I do not know it as well as I think I do. Let's go look at the rule book. I love it. I was super happy to have the excuse to play it. And I even had fun helping teach it the next day at our event, like after, once we'd done a refresher. It's a super solid game.
Yeah, Mo wasn't even sure if I'd played it before, but the moment we started setting it up, I remembered it clearly, and I feel like I could have almost taught it. Like, the game is 10 years old now, and it just still feels fresh. Yeah. I might also be speaking positively about it because I won, but it's really just a great midweight game that hasn't aged poorly at all. It's just fun, and the mechanics are pretty straightforward and simple.
Yeah, it's as good as I remember it.
Yeah. And it did prove that Sean does not lose all games, as he mentioned in our AMA last episode. He kind of destroyed us, actually. I was way behind. Deanna was starting to catch up. I think if the game had gone longer, Deanna might have caught up. But that is another one of those games where the end sneaks up on you. You're like, oh, wait, tiles are done. Uh-oh. Now, at the same pop-up game cafe, I actually ended up playing a couple rounds of caution signs, and that was just the fact that we got near the end of the event, the 4 hours event, and there was like half an hour left. And they're like, what do you have that's 4 hours or have? Oh, no, they were going to pack up. They were going to leave. They're like, oh, no, well, there's nothing that'll fit. I'm like, hold on. I'm going to go get you something. You're going to love this. And oh my gosh, was it a hit. I think that group had more fun with caution signs than any other group I've taught the game. And well, everyone I've taught the game has a good time. Like, that went over so well. And I actually got to play because it was at the end of the event. We weren't having to teach anything anymore. And man, that game is so well designed. Danielle and Scott, you did an awesome job on this game. Like, it is so good. Every time I play it, I've become less interested in playing some of the other drawing games that I've loved for years. I'm just like, no, I don't need those. I just play caution signs.
Well, while we were there, I got to play Aqualin with Costa, whom I know from local cosplay events. And he came out to check out our pop-up after seeing it on my socials. This game is just such a fun starter game, really, or filler. It's nothing too heavy, though it does suffer if you have a little bit of poor lighting. So those colors can be a little hard to read if you don't have nice, bright, clear white colors. But other than that, this game is just so straightforward. Even I can teach Aqualin.
Yeah, it was one of those. I'm like, Sean, why don't you play Aqualin with? Because he knew Costa, and I first time I met Costa, though they did look familiar. I think I'd seen him out before, but yeah, Aqualin's just good. It's still one of Gwen's favorite games.
Yeah, I don't play it with Gwen. She always wins.
Yeah, fair. All right, here's the one I think people have been waiting to hear some of our thoughts on, or at least I get messages asking me, hey, have you played this yet? And that is SETI from our CGE Czech Games edition. Now, we have played once. And only once, and it was very much a learning game. And I didn't have a lot of prep time for this particular learning game. The day before, unboxed everything, made a quick video. That's not up yet. It's in multiple different video files right now that need to be stitched together to become an Instagram reel at some point. But I basically showed up with the game like punched but unsorted, like, and having read the rules once, like literally once, I didn't even reread them. With that in mind, our first play was not the best experience. It was pretty rough.
So I think Mo's rather hard on this first game because honestly, while there were problems, there's no question there were problems with this first play. I think this is actually more of a real experience of a first play that most gamers are going to get. This is how most people play games. They open the box and they try it. They don't watch 3 how to play videos and make sure they've read through the rule book 3 times and pre-sort and pre-bag. That's just not the normal sort of real experience that players get. And so I think, warts and all, this was how the game was going to play for most people first time.
And I worry about that because that could scare people away. Speaking of teaching games for the first time, we do have a couple episodes about that. I don't remember the names right now. I didn't do the research ahead of time, but I'll drop those in the show notes for anyone who does want to see my tips so that you're more prepared and don't just show up and get kind of overwhelmed. So the first problem with this game is setup's a beast. This was one of the worst setups I've experienced in like board gaming ever. Like, just figuring out how to build the puzzle of the board and the various overlays and how they go together in rings that look like they should be held in place but aren't. And then there's like these slots you have to put these little data discs in, and there's all these different texts that have to be sorted by tech type and then shuffled. And then you put these fiddly little 2-point tokens on top that only cover parts so you can still see the image. You've got the aliens to randomize. And it's one of those ones where you put stuff on your board and it covers up things. And it's just, wow, this was a lot of setup. I think if you had a group of 4 who have all played the game before and all each took a different section, it might work. But if you're setting this up for the first time to play with people, like, do your group a favor and try to have it set up before you sit down to play.
Yeah, this one is also a bit of a table hog.
Yes.
And because of the shape of it, it's this elongated rectangle. There's no best place to sit either.
Mm-hmm.
The long sides are better for reach, but then you're looking at everything sideways. Whereas if you're at the end where you can see everything clearly, that stop the aliens on the far end of the board when they are finally revealed, you're going to be asking someone what's there because it's a long way away from you.
Yeah, this is one of the few games where I think you're probably better off with 2 people on each side of a table and it going sideways in front of you. Having no one at the ends is probably your best way to set things up in this game. Now, fiddliness of setup is one thing, but I would say the gameplay is definitely fiddly as well. There's just a lot of bits and moving pieces and components and cards and icons. I haven't been overwhelmed by icons this bad since the first original Race for the Galaxy. There is just so much going on. There is very little text on any of the cards, which is good to make it language independent. But it's just like the reference card for this is a 4-page booklet. Technically, it's 1 page, you fold it, but still, there's just a lot of stuff going on. And then it actually ramps up as you're playing because part of the game is you're discovering aliens. Well, once you discover the aliens, each alien's asymmetric and has more counters and more fiddly things. And we are putting more stuff on the board. And some of it just were interesting design choices. For example, when you send out a probe, you have this little probe miniature that you're moving around. Well, that's also the exact same miniature you're going to use if you land on a planet and send a crawler. I can't think of rover, on the planet. And it's also the same one you're going to place to be a satellite. And it just where they are on the board means different things. And I'm like, that was the one thing I'm like, I want 3 different pieces because in our play, people were getting confused. They're like, but I already have a satellite at the planet. We're like, no, that's your probe that's outside the planet. Your satellite would be over there. Well, I want to land on the planet. Can I do that? I've got a satellite. And I'm like, no, you need a probe because a probe becomes a rover. And that really I found confusing. And just all of this really added to the learning curve to this game, which I found surprisingly steep. Like I knew it was going to be a heavier game, but like I had an easier time learning Weather Machine.
So I think this game requires a first play, a learning play. You're just not going to learn this from someone teaching it to you. You need to see how the things interact and see that this probe being here means it's orbiting and the probe being here means it's landing and things like that. Why does this happen? And when can you do that? This is not a light game by any means. And the number of things on the table and their integration with the game, because it really is like, I really like this game. Our gameplay was horrible. It was a disaster. He was sitting there laughing because we were having this, there was this sound of misery coming from the table. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I was really sort of becoming more in love with the game because I was figuring out, I was learning things so that the next time I play, I can really fully experience this really awesome thematic sci-fi game.
Yeah, I sat back and I didn't play, but I was in the same room. I was working on my laptop off in the corner, and you guys sounded miserable. Like you sounded frustrated, and you were constantly stopping to have to back up and re-explain and asking questions. And wait, that doesn't make sense. And Mo was constantly looking things up, and I thought, wow, that sounds rough. And I know from the games that you generally like, Sean, that is not usually a quality you enjoy. So I thought Sean is going to hate this game. You're going to walk out of there and be like, that is the worst game I've ever played. And Sean was like, actually, it was pretty good. And I was like, you kidding me? Because you sounded like you wanted to kill someone.
No, I want more. I want more.
It's good. It's great for Sean. I actually found it surprisingly rough. Like more so than I would have liked. For all the hype, for all the people going on about this game, the awards it's winning, it's just not what I expected. It just was not a pleasant first play. And I can't help but compare it to Kutna Hora, which is the most recent CGE big heavy game we played. That game just smooth and it flowed. And my daughter Eve loved it because of how easy it was to learn, because of the logical flow. And I'm like, yes, everything in this is based on real science. And I guess it makes sense that you're sending out probes and then your probes can change into two different things and you're going to scan planets to try to collect data. But it just didn't feel as tied in or as connected. It just felt like a bunch of moving parts. And I wasn't sure which dial I should be tweaking and what I should be doing. Like one of our recent podcasts was topics were games that are fun from turn one. And I've got to say, this is not a game that was fun from turn one. Now, about halfway through, I was starting to get it. And near the end of the game, I started to see things I think I would have done differently. But like I still, after finishing that game, wouldn't start up the next game with a solid plan of what to do because I still kind of felt lost.
So I will say, in defense of some players involved, there may have been some hearing issues and not wanting to asking you to repeat yourself, which led to some confusion along the way. That might have been some of the issues. But no, there's definitely a lot going on. And I think one of the really interesting things about this game is that there's only so much planning ahead you can do, because again, there's these aspects of, people will get up and do things on their own. Like the game has the concept of the populace that does things on their own as a trigger within the game. And then when the aliens appear, you don't know which aliens you're going to get. It's randomized, and they do very different things, we discovered. Within
all of that sounds very cool.
And so this asymmetry comes later in the game, which means you have to keep your options open to some degree so that when you see that option appear as an alien intelligence is discovered, you can pivot and take advantage of it. Because we did discover, even in that player game, the people who weren't able to pivot and take any advantage of those alien intelligences suffered and struggled.
But it's even before that. It's just that, like, should I be scanning to collect data? Should I be focusing on improving my tech? Should I be buying cards? Like, I don't even know. I played a full game and I still don't know. Should I be mixing all those things? Like, just the basic stuff. Should I be trying to land on as many planets as I can? Should I be setting up satellites first, then rovers, so I save one energy? Or is it better just to launch a rover? It was all those decision points where, like, nothing felt like I did the right thing or the wrong thing. I was just doing things. And again, it's first play, right? First experiences. But, like, you get some raw thoughts on SETI here. If you want some raw thoughts on how the game may play. Now, I know Sean was saying that everyone needs to play a first game, but I think the big thing this game could use is a coach, someone who has played multiple times, who knows the game, who can be like, look, in the early game, you probably want to focus on this. And once you start doing that, and it really reminds me of my first play of Arcs, where Pete Wissinger taught me the game and he kind of coached us. Versus the first time we all sat down and played Arcs, and I was like, oh my God, I remember enjoying this game. What's happening? Because I was lost. I didn't have that coach to kind of guide me through it. And I almost feel like I need a SETI coach there to kind of walk us through what we should be doing. So I'm sure we'll discover that on our own eventually.
Nothing you have said here has talked me out of this game.
There you go.
It all sounds like fun.
Yeah, while I wasn't enjoying that first play as much as the herd, I like the game. It's just that whole learning process can be onerous. And so, yeah, but you have to accept that this is a beefy game with a lot going on. This is one of our heavier games of late, and you need to get to that point where you understand all the components. This game is rated in the top 20 on Board Game Geek right now.
Wow. See, that didn't feel like a top 20 game, not from a first play. I'm surprised. I am not giving up on the game. I definitely obviously didn't have as good a time as Sean did while playing this game. I was just like, man, if I'm going to play a heavy game, I'd rather play a few others rather than this one. But I will give it its fair shot. This is why we play games multiple times before we give you a full review. So stick around. It'll probably be in the new year before we get to it, but we'll eventually give you our final thoughts on SETI. And it'll be amusing because it'll completely swap. And Sean will be like, yeah, the game's too random based on the things. And I'll be like, oh, I love it because it's so intricate. And meanwhile, we'll both just be frustrated because D started playing and kicked our butts every single game. Next up, something else comparatively complex and heavy. I played some Rhino Hero. A game for 6-year-olds. At our last Brews and Board Games event, I played this. This was another end of the night. People were looking for something to fill the last 15 minutes. And like, you don't happen to have a game you play in 15 minutes, do you? I'm like, oh, heck yeah. And I brought over Rhino Hero and actually played it. This game is just too much fun. It's silly. It's a stacking game with cardboard buildings where you're kind of building like a house of cards and you're trying to play your roofs. And the first person to get rid of all the roofs wins. But some of the roofs have like Uno-like stuff, like draw an extra roof or change the turn order. It's silly. It's ridiculous fun. And it is so much fun to watch a group of grown adults play this game for 6-year-olds. I blew their mind in the, oh my God, board games can be this thing I didn't know they were. Kind of reminded me as we had Looping Louie out at the event previous, and that got played probably more than any other game we brought by a bunch of grown-ass adults.
I cannot argue that every time you break this out and show it to grown-ups, they have a good time. Long as I'm not one of them. It is a Dex game, and I just do not see the draw.
Yeah, it was funny because earlier in the night, we'd given it to a younger family who'd had it, and their daughters were like standing on chairs to get their towers because they couldn't reach their towers. They were building them so high. And me on that game, if I make it to like the 4th level without knocking it down, that's a big deal for me. I definitely don't need to be standing on chairs. And Hamster Roll was also a huge success with the adults on that at that event.
Yeah, that was actually the same group. There was one particular person, I must have never played a dexterity game in their life, but they were so stressed out and intense.
I think that's hilarious. Just their personality. They seem to sort of be that big, bold folk.
So the last game that hit our table was Lunar Skyline. This is another one we just called out. One of the best new trick takers we played. We're going to review that as the final segment of the show tonight. So all I'm going to say is this is a good one, y'all. Like if you dig trick takers, check this one out.
We played these 2 trick takers, Origin Stories and Lunar Skyline, in pretty close time frames, so I couldn't help but compare them. Yeah. Mainly because I was really looking forward to Origin Stories. I was super excited to get it to the table, and then we played it, and it was just okay. But on the other hand, I was not at all excited about Lunar Skyline. Like, if I'm going to be honest, I was kind of like, why did Mo say yes to reviewing this game? And I was, now I got to play it. And then I played it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. I'm so excited. There's a lot of neat things going on here. And I ended up thinking it was the stronger of the 2 games. So, expectations can throw you for a loop. That's all I'm saying.
All right. So that's what we've been playing. What about you? We're always on the lookout for a trick-taking game that does something we've never seen before. Lunar Skyline does that by featuring 2 suits on each card, an interesting smuggling mechanic, and more.
So Lunar Skyline came out earlier this year in 2025 from publisher Dead Alive Games. We have to thank for sending us a promotional copy. Now, this card game is set in the same world as their most popular game, which is known as Lunar Rush. The card game was designed by Charlie McCarran and features artwork and graphic design by Zachary Leo, Alexei Pai, and Maria Zankova.
This 2 to 6 player competitive non-partner trick-taking game plays for as long as you like, but a typical game is 3 hands, and that usually lasts under half an hour. Whenever we play this, we often end up playing 2 or 3 games of 3 rounds each in one sitting.
Thematically, this game is set 10 years after Lunar Rush and represents a time where firms are building to compete to shape the skyline of the first lunar metropolis. Each hand, you will choose a building type to build and then try to win tricks whose symbols or suits match the building you choose. If you hit your bid, you earn powerful bonus cards, but get penalized for going over and wasting resources.
So Lunar Skyline, Skywise, I don't even know what I was thinking there. Lunar Skyline comes in a unique magnetic box where the lid becomes this board that you put at the center of the table that holds the lead card each hand or each trick. In it are 2 sets of cards, the main card deck, reference cards and players cards, which are standard size, and a deck of smaller bonus and building cards. You also get a dry erase score sheet and 1 dry erase marker. The box is serviceable and does a great job of keeping the cards sorted, protected, and in place. Note, we did not try sleeving our cards to see if they fit. The overall quality of this game is good.
The deck of cards for Lunar Skyline is made up of cards representing 6 different buildings, each with a unique color and distinct artwork. Each card has 2 suit icons on it and will also have a value from 1 to 10. And then there's also a set of aces, 1 card for each of the game's 6 suits. I should also say, going forward in this review, we are going to assume that you're familiar with the basic rules and terms used in trick-taking games.
Now, before you start a game of Lunar Skyline, you may need to remove some cards from the deck based on your player count. Then deal out a hand of 12 to each player, 15 if playing 2-player. From your hand, players must pick 1 building to build, and this is their bid for the round.
The player with the highest bid gets the lead, and everyone must follow suit if they can, with the highest played card taking the trick. Ties go to the last card played. If you choose to play an ace, you choose if you want it to be high or low. There's no trump in this game. Things get interesting when you can't follow suit, then you get to smuggle a card. This card counts as a winning trick for your bid, and the rest of the players resolve their cards as normal.
But smuggling doesn't happen that often because remember, each card has 2 suits and you have to follow suit if you can. So there's actually 3 different buildings or colors of cards that can be played off of a single lead. So you have to void yourself with multiple suits before you can smuggle successfully. And also, smuggling is not always good. Sometimes you end up being forced to smuggle, and this puts you over your bid if you're not paying attention.
Now, speaking of bids, as soon as the first player hits their bid, they get to pick from the bonus cards. These give you new scoring opportunities and include all kinds of things like extra points for collecting cards of set suits, smuggling cards, hitting the highest bid, and more.
And then as more players hit their bids, they get to collect more of these bonus cards. And in each round, there will be a number in play equal to the number of players plus 1. So you always have at least 2 choices. Now, when you win a trick, you're going to take all the cards in that trick and you're going to pick one of them and make a stack of cards with that card on the top. That resulting pile is then placed into a growing tableau in front of you. Now, at the end of the round, you're going to have to discard any stacks or any tricks you took that are more than your bid, choosing which to get rid of. Then you're going to get points. You're going to get points for each symbol on the face-up cards from your remaining tricks that match a symbol on your bid card. Remember, every bid card has 2 symbols. You then add any bonus points from those bonus cards you collected, and finally, you're then going to lose 2 points for every trick you were over.
You can choose to play as many hands as you want with the standard game, and the nifty dry erase scoreboard is set for 3 rounds.
Now, in addition to these basic rules, you also get the Skyline Bonus Mini Expansion. Remember how the cards represent buildings? And your bid is what you are choosing to build. Well, with this expansion, when you hit your bid, at the end of the round, you get to collect a card representing that building. At the end of the game, everyone scores points for collecting sets of unique buildings.
So Lunar Skylines to me just feels very pure. Like it just feels very much like playing a traditional playing card trick-taking game, despite the fact that it has some significant differences from any standard playing card versions. Now, of course, the most significant is that every card has 2 suits, and then there's the way you can smuggle cards. Also, the fact the aces are high or low is pretty unique, yet somehow this all just feels very familiar, and I love it for that. Like I found myself very relaxed while playing this game. It felt like a game I've been playing for years, despite only trying it for the first time, honestly, a couple weeks ago.
No, you're right. It definitely had that get back on my bicycle kind of feeling. Like I was just coming back to something I already know. It was very a comfy game, you know?
So this one shocked me. So it hasn't been doing very well in the ratings, and it's a bidding game. So while I wanted to give it a try, I want to give everything a fair shake that we talk about here, I was prepared for it just not to be for me. Instead, I loved it. It was a great game. It was not too heavy, but more than enough to keep you thinking. And a major feature, I think, for me, and part of what helps offset the bidding, the fact that it's a bidding game, is that card counting beyond a certain really basic level just isn't possible because you've left a number of cards out of the deck.
Now, what does feel different is once your hand's done. Like playing through a hand of this just felt comfortable and normal. Scoring is a little wonky, and the bonus cards are a little weird. It's the playing a hand that feels familiar, because once you hit your bid, you're going to pick a bonus thing. And that feels very modern. Like now I feel like, okay, now I'm playing a modern trick taker that's got funky stuff going on. And I'm reminded I'm playing a hobby board game. Part of the pitch to this game was saying it's a bit of a resource management game. And I wouldn't call it resource management. It's more of a set collection game because you're trying to collect tricks in the right suits. And the bonus system is actually rather neat. And I like the way it actually will affect how you play. Like you will sit there and look and say, oh, well, right now there's a bonus up that if I collect leaves, I get points. Well, I don't need leaves for my building, but whenever I'm going to take a trick, might try to take tricks with leaves in them to try to get extra points. I think leaves represent life. I forget the iconography. Sorry. If you can't tell, the theme's a little pasted on here. So it's kind of interesting. And like some of the bonuses are neat the way they affect play, but we did find some seem a bit better than others. But honestly, it's just not really a problem because I find that also affects your play. If there's a really good bonus card out there, people might be encouraged to bid lower so they can hit their bid first to get that card. But then if you bid low, you're probably going to get too many tricks and lose points. And there's a neat bit of math and decision point there.
Yeah, there's definitely a trade-off there where you don't want to bid too low because if you go over your bid value, you're losing 2 points for every trick that you take, right? So
I think the scoring can be flexible enough that the bonuses also being varied doesn't really hinder much. And that's the one thing I think people are going to run into playing this. These scores can really be all over the place. You might score a 13 one round and a 2 the next. The fact that the score sheet has 3 rounds feels like a solid play length, though there's no reason you couldn't go longer or shorter, but longer will help balance out the swinginess that much more.
Yeah, honestly, I think a 5-round game would probably be a better bell curve for the scores we've seen, but I actually just prefer playing 3-round game and then playing another 3-round game. Now, as for the mini expansion, like at first I loved it. I'm like, let's not play without this. But the more I use it, the more I'm on the fence. Now, I love the impact it has on bidding because you don't really want to bid with a building you've already built. And that's a strong encouragement to make a bid you may not want to do, which then makes for a very interesting hand. And it makes some really hard decisions. But I've always found every single game we played, the player who goes all in on collecting buildings tends to win the game. Like the scoring points for that seem to be a little higher than I would like. They kind of outrank all of the bonus cards. And then there are 3 bonus cards that get you extra buildings, and those seem a little OP. We've had scores of over 30 points in one round due to someone collecting more than one of those extra building cards that let you get extra bonuses. So I'm kind of on the fence on the expansion.
Yeah, I really have to agree, especially for people who don't like the bidding. The reward those buildings give you for hitting your bid can feel a bit outside. And it's just not that hard to get a couple of them. And that one bonus card in particular seems to be at the core of it. Yeah. While I wonder what removing the lobbyist, I believe it is, might do to reduce the gaps, it would also eliminate the option as a catch-up mechanic. So it's a tough call to say, yeah, just remove that card.
See, I'm not on the fence on this one. I'm firmly down on the other side. I like it better without the expansion.
There you go. Now, one thing I will say, there is a bit of learning curve to this game, but like it's not learning as in it's hard to learn. It just, there's this bit of frustration when you first sit down playing. And I think this is going to be a factor mainly for people who have played a lot of trick-taking games. It's that feeling of having to follow suit and wanting to play the same color. Sean played a red, so I have to play a red. No, Sean played a red, which has blue and yellow symbols on it, or water and lightning, or as we like to call it, death. So I can play a card that has a lightning on it, or a card that has a water on it, or a card that has both. And it's getting past that feeling of you threw a green, I have to throw a green. You threw a purple, oh, I have a purple in my hand, I have to throw it. That I found actually difficult to overcome. And I know my mother-in-law found that actually especially difficult. Like she just automatically was in mode, throw the matching color of the card that's out there. The other thing is it's really hard to void yourself of a suit because you have to get rid of 2 suits, not just one. And if you're trying to smuggle, you're going to have to get rid of a third on one side of those 2 to actually be voided to be able to smuggle a card.
And honestly, where this trips me up the most is when you're first setting up your hand at the beginning of a round and looking at it and trying to figure out, okay, what am I bidding? Where am I going with this? I think I'm only going to take this many tricks, and then you realize I can't possibly smuggle. I can't get out of this, and the card that you're picking to bid is also what, it's not just your bid number. You're not just playing a 3 and saying, I'm going to take 3 bids. It also has 2 symbols on it. And those 2 are the 2 symbols that you're going to score points for. And then I'm throwing away one of those cards. But if I'm throwing away one of these cards, then I don't actually have anything else with that symbol on it, and I'm not going to score any points. Like, there's a lot going on there, and it's neat.
Yeah, it's interesting because Mo's talking about how it's hard. Oh, you threw a purple. I want to throw a purple. I never actually thought of the cards in that way. And I think, and I don't know if that's one of the reasons why it was more comfortable for me and I didn't have that particular problem. When I looked at the cards, I was looking at, this is the death card. This is water and electricity, or this is the robotic people card, or that. The little colors around that never really imprinted on me. Now, that being said, what became more difficult for me as a result was, how the heck do you sort these out in your hand? You get 12 cards and you've got to lay these out. And I found myself shifting it around as I was playing and adjusting. Okay, well, this is how the game is going. Okay, well, obviously I'm going to do this, and resorting my cards in the middle of a round. I still can't say I would know how to sort them the next time I sat down and got 12 new cards.
Now, this has all been rather positive. The one place, at least Sean and I won't recommend this game, I think, is at 2 players. I did not enjoy this game at 2 players. Now, what I did like is, instead of having like a ghost hand or a third player or a bunch of cards face down like in two-player euchre, it uses a system where each player contributes 2 cards to each trick, which worked kind of neat. And there's some interesting stuff where you could like trump yourself, or you could set yourself up by setting the lead so you could play an off-color card that actually scored you more points. But I just found the game was way too random. Like, a good hand is always going to beat a bad hand. And with 4 players, there's ways you can work around that. You can try to smuggle, but with 2 players, it just wasn't fun. It was one player who gets a better hand than someone else is probably just going to win that round.
Yeah, unfortunately, a good hand that doesn't even beat. I mean, it crushes with only merely competent play. Like, you don't even have to be an expert. It just kind of works out pretty easily that, this is how I am going to win now. So it makes the 2-player game just wildly swingy. One person is going to win based on their hand, and how the hand plays how the hand gets dealt in the next turn will mean how that one wins. Definitely not a game, I would say, for 2 players.
Which removes all the fun from the game, because the fun here is looking at that hand and going, I have no clue how the hell I'm going to win with this game, in this game, when it's, you're playing with 3 or 4.
Yep. So we actually first saw Lunar Skyline back at Gamma Expo in February 2025. And I got to say, I was interested right from that elevator pitch of, here's a trick taker with cards that have 2 suits. Now, it wasn't quite what I expected. I actually thought you'd be following the last card played, so it was more of a chain of cards instead of just following the lead. And I didn't expect the suits to be equally balanced. Like, every card is paired with 2 cards next to it, like the way it works, and it kind of makes a rainbow if you look at the colors of the cards. And I actually expected like every suit to be paired with every other suit at least once, and that's not what it is. But that's just how they designed the deck. And I got to say, I think it's probably better than what I had in my mind. This is a game that, again, some trepidation, indie publisher, not very well known, unique concepts. And I sat down and I was just like, dang, that was good. Like, that just felt good. It just feels good. It feels familiar. Like, there's just something about the casual, like, you're doing that sit back thing and someone throws a card and you're just like, yep, I know what that is. Yep, I know what that is. Oh yeah, well, here, boom. And there's a lot of moments where you end up screwing over the last player just to get screwed over yourself, especially with those aces. I fell in love with this game immediately. If you're a trick-taking fan, if you dig traditional trick-taking games, try this game. Like, check this game out. I love the twists here, and I love playing out hand after hand. Yeah, the scoring's a little weird, and it takes a bit to get used to it, but, like, you know what? I don't mind. the kind of wonky scoring, and like one game I'm getting -2 and the next game I'm getting 40. I actually love playing through each hand of this game, and playing through hands of Lunar Skyline makes up for any issues I have with the scoring.
I love the smuggling. That right there makes the game for me. And also half the time I'm so frustrated with the fact that I end up having to smuggle when I don't want to and taking tricks I don't want to, but it's still fun.
Yeah, this is one of those games that sort of is the exception that proves the rule. This is a bidding trick-taking game that I really like playing. So that's about all we have to say about Lunar Skyline, the first game we've played from Dead Alive Games, a company we're going to have to look into further. Lunar Rush sounds right up my alley, and for the Skirmish miniature fans, Omicron Protocol was nominated for Best Miniature Game at the last Origins Game Fair.
So I'm starting to have a soft spot, I think, for series of games, like sets of games in the same world. The Valeria games is a good example of that. And I was also reminded of like the Artemis Project and the Artemis Odyssey by our previous sponsor, Grand Gamers Guild, because they're two very different games set on the same timeline, just like Lunar Rush and Lunar Skyline. And I'm starting to dig publishers doing that.
What about you? Do you have a game series you're particularly fond of? Let us know all about it, leaving a comment wherever you found this review, sending me an email at tiana@tabletopbellhop.com, or best of all, go start up a conversation on our Discord over at discord.tabletopbellhop.com.
Every hero starts somewhere. An origin story is a tried and true introduction for a hero or a villain. But how does it develop? Where does it come from? That's something this trick-taking tableau builder from Stonemaier Games proposes to reveal through play.
The origin story comes from Jamie Stegmaier and Pete Wissinger. Pete is a trick-taking game fanatic we met at Adam 2025, and Jamie we have to thank for providing us with a review copy of this superhero-themed trick-taker. Now, this game plays 1 to 5 players, with games taking under an hour, even for your first couple of plays.
The game comes in what's a rather small box for a Stonemaier game, and it's packed to the brim. You get single-fold player boards, wooden stamina tokens, a 2-sided score dial for each player that you're going to have to assemble, and of course, lots of cards. There's a main deck of cards for the trick-taking part of the game, and there's also some event cards and a larger deck of power cards.
The component quality is good to excellent, except for the box itself. It doesn't really provide a good way to store the cards or other components, and I can see many people looking into some kind of insert. So far, we've resorted to baggies to keep the various decks separated and safe. The card and game art is very striking and comes from watercolor master Clementine Campardu, whose style people may recognize from Wormspan and other games.
So in Origin Story, as Sean alluded to at the beginning, you are creating the background for a random superhero through 5 rounds of card play that uses traditional trick-taking mechanics, where each trick represents a crisis for your characters to overcome. The deck is comprised of 4 suits, brain, strength, speed, and love, of cards numbered 1 through 13. Now, the love suit is always trump, as love conquers all.
You start the game with a random character board, which gives you 1 starting power, some way to manipulate the upcoming hand of cards. You also get 1 stamina token. Stamina is used to activate your powers. And finally, each player is dealt 2 superhero cards, which also act as rather useful reference cards.
At the start of each round, everyone gains 1 stamina token, meaning you actually start the game with 2. And everyone is dealt 8 cards. At the start of round 1 through 4, everyone gets 3 random power cards. From these, they choose 1 and put it onto their player board. At the start of round 5, instead of getting power cards, players choose one of the 2 superhero cards they got at the beginning of the game to be their identity, and they activate that card.
Now, power cards come in all kinds of forms. There's gadgets and allies and arch nemesis and ultimate powers and so on. Each card, though, has some kind of ability that is going to modify future card hands. Now, these include abilities that are going to go off before a trick starts. There's going to be some that you can use anytime as long as it's your turn to play. Or they might happen at the end of the trick. They could provide ongoing bonuses. They might let you do something cool when you have the lead and so on. There is a huge amount of variety here. It's going to take you a couple games to get through that deck for the first time. And a lot of the fun of the game is actually discovering new powers and the way they can combine with others.
Once everyone has picked out their powers, players then are going to allocate their stamina tokens to preload the powers that you're going to have access to. Some powers are going to require you to spend the stamina that you've placed on them in order to activate, but others activate just if the stamina is present, but they don't use it up. And sometimes in the game, turn order matters, and when that comes up, it's always a player to the left of the dealer.
Now, every player has a score tracker that is two-sided. One side represents your character being a hero, with the other representing them going down the path of villainy. Once everyone has allocated their stamina, each player chooses which role they will take for the upcoming hand. Note, your allegiance is for the entire hand, not a single trick. The difference between the two is how they score. So heroes score a point for every trick won, whereas villains score 4 points if they win no tricks.
Next up, you play a hand of cards. You're following standard trick-taking rules. You need to follow suit. If you can't, you can play offsuit. Highest card of the led suit wins. Unless a trump card was played, then the highest trump wins. Very straightforward. It's probably about as pure a trick-taking game I've ever seen, except for the fact everyone has all these power cards with stamina on them that can mess with this system, which can lead to things getting a little chaotic at times.
After all 8 tricks are played, players total up their score. In addition to getting points based on their rules, players can and often will score additional points based on their active powers. In pretty much all of the games we played, the majority of points came from powers and not from our roles.
Now there's one more interesting twist. For round 3 only, after everyone has gotten their cards, you reveal one random event card. These affect everyone and can change up rules for that one round. Sometimes you get to pass cards, sometimes tricks are worth more, oftentimes you must choose a champion, and everyone gets points based on the tricks that they win, and more. That's just some of the ones we've seen. This event deck is rather large, and you only use one every game.
Now, I want to jump back to one thing we said just to clarify it a bit and show the effect of the game, and that is in round 5, you don't get new powers. Instead, you're going to take one of those 2 superhero cards you got at the beginning and pick one of those to be your identity. What hero did you end up being? Now, every card is unique and different and asymmetric, and what they do is they're going to give you a way to score a bunch of points. And they may also modify your character for the last round. We've seen things like scoring points, flipping up cards from the deck until you get a low card, trying to see how many cards of a suit you have, different types of powers you've collected giving you points, and things like doubling your stamina for the last round. There's all kinds of interesting things here. And you do get to look at those at the beginning of the game, at the beginning of the round, which may modify how you play the round, though that may not always help.
And at the end of the 5th round, the player with the most points wins.
Now, when I first heard that Pete was working on a game with Jamie, I was hyped. Then I learned it was super themed, and I was like, oh, we're going to have to get this one. Now, that was more for Sean's sake, because he's the one that is the superhero fan of our group. And when I saw the final product, I'm like, I've got to have this. Now, thankfully, Jamie reached out not long after to give us a chance to check out his new game, and I couldn't say yes quick enough.
It was Tableau Builder plus Trick Taker. Right there, I was like, man, I got to try this. I'm so hyped about this.
Yeah, I was super excited about various aspects of this game. I'd seen it at one of the previews, one of the event preview lists. It had first popped up for me, and just the fact that there's a fun new superhero game, as well as having fantastic art from this artist whose work is phenomenal. Had to have it.
And knowing that the premise and it was a trick taker, like, I'll admit I built up some expectations of what I expected when playing this game. I didn't watch anyone else's reviews. I didn't want to spoil it. I didn't want to, ruin my thoughts on the game. I was going to sit down and introduce this to Dee and Sean, and we're going to play it without any preconceived notions, except we all kind of had our own. And this game was not at all what any of those preconceived notions were. Like, it was like I was so far off. Without being able to really nail exactly what I expected, there were definitely aspects I didn't expect. Now, this sounds pretty negative. I'm not saying this is a bad game. All I want to say is this was totally not what I thought I was getting when this game showed up.
Yeah, that's really the kind of the entire origin story of this game for me is mismatched expectations. The game felt like it was going to be something else, and it wasn't. And that's not saying that it's a bad game. It's just, it wasn't what I expected to have down in front of me when we first sat down with it.
Yeah, I was hoping for more of a like developing story where you're actually finding out how your character evolves, not just assembling a bunch of random powers. And I thought there was going to be like, once you say tableau builder, I'm thinking engine builder, right? I'm thinking fantastic factories. I'm thinking I'm going to set up an engine and every card I play is going to build to that engine so that I end up with this streamlined hero at the end. And I expected the trick taking game to be a little more, I don't know, there's something unique to trick taking instead of just here it is, standard trick taking game with a bunch of wild and chaotic abilities that kind of remove your ability to play the trick taking game tactically or strategically.
Yes, I was definitely thinking tableau builder in that I'm going to just be building stacks of cards in front of me and growing something. And it doesn't really play out that way at all. You make a few key choices each round that build your origin story for your character, but it wasn't what I was expecting from it.
Yeah, I think what sort of really caught it with me is the trick-taking game, because I don't really understand what the actual game, the trick-taking game, has to do with anything. Now, I'm sure you can sit down and you can argue of some overarching themes of strength and heart and brains and speed, with one rising up and driving your character, but that would just be a story that you'd be forcing onto the game as a player that has nothing to do with what's actually happened on the game in front of you.
Yeah, and the other thing is this game is very random. Now, I'm not talking about the trick-taking game. It's a 52-card deck. You only have 6 cards that are out of play, and it plays very traditionally. What I'm talking about are the massive deck of power cards and your choice every game of which power card to choose every round out of 3. We have seen some extremely powerful combos as well as some almost useless seeming cards. While you can find some cool synergies, most of the time you're just going to pick the card that fits best in the moment, because you do get to pick your powers after you get your hand of cards, which is actually a nice touch. I like that. So I can make an informed choice, but then I pick a card that's good for that hand. I'm not going to have the same hand next round, and a power that could have been awesome for that hand could be absolutely terrible in the next one. So like if you take a card that's like get a bonus point for every speed card you collect or you play, and then your next hand has no speed cards in it, it's random that way. It's almost impossible to actually make a plan and stick with it in this game. It's very reactionary.
Yeah, long-term planning does not work. And I think where I was most frustrated with this game is I wanted the superhero roles. You're presented with 2 at the beginning of the game, and I wanted to sort of work my way towards one or the other by the end. But nothing you do those first 4 rounds for most of those rules, for the way they react, has anything to do with the first 4 rounds. It just has to do with your 5th round and what you have in your hand for your 5th round, and you make your choice based on that. And you can't build up to it. And that just annoyed me on some.
Yeah, and I have to say that there is definitely an advantage to having played this game, being familiar with what kinds of powers and arch nemesis and ultimate powers are in there, so that you can kind of, while not necessarily plan for what cards you're going to get dealt, you can try and aim for combos and try and, hope that you're going to get a couple of different things you can play off each other with your stamina in order to overcome whatever might happen in your hand. But without having played the game enough and seen enough of the powers, that's impossible.
Yeah. Now, my other complaint here is the lack of a story, right? I want to tell an origin story. I just don't want to collect a bunch of random powers. Like, sure, if you get the right group, they may sit there and tell stories as they're going and be like, and in year 3, I met my arch nemesis who did this. And maybe at the end, you can sit there and look at all 5 of your cards and come up with a coherent plot. But that's 100% on the players, as Sean noted earlier. There is nothing in this game to actually encourage storytelling in any way. Like in that way, this reminds me a lot of Steve Jackson games Gloom. Everyone I know loves Gloom. They're like, I love it. I love it. It's amazing. You tell these best stories. It's the goth card game. It's amazing. But all those people are RPG players who, like, the fun of that game is telling stories about the families and what all the negative cards did to impact those families. None of that has anything to do with the mechanics of Doom. And I've seen a lot of reviewers talk about how the awesome stories they told, playing origin stories and the heroes they made. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not getting that. And I'm usually the one that's more about theme than, say, Sean. But this feels very mechanical.
It's beautiful. The art is gorgeous. I love the player boards. But you're sort of covering up some of the gorgeous art with your cards as you go along. The art does feel like it's sort of story driven, is trying to draw you into a narrative.
So the last time I played the game, this is going back a little bit to what Dee was saying and Mo was saying about the story. I jumped in to finish a teach that Mo had started. He had to move on to something else. So I didn't actually even look at my hero cards. Mo had picked, had gotten his 2 hero cards and put them down on the board. And I already had a hand of cards in front of me. So I just didn't look at them until round 5 when I had to choose one. And when I flipped them over and realized, I haven't actually seen these before, I realized at that point, I wouldn't change a single thing I had done in the prior 4 rounds with the knowledge I now had. So that made me a little sad because it should have been a goal I was working for. It should have been the culmination of this adventure of 4 rounds, the development of my origin story. But it isn't. It's just another random choice that only impacts a single round of play.
Yeah. Now, I will say, origin story wasn't what I expected. And honestly, it even wasn't what I wanted. Someone please make a tableau building superhero game where I tell an origin story, because I still feel there's a market for that. But I gotta say, what this is actually still pretty cool. Like, it's a neat game. This is not a terrible game. It just, like, I can't remember the last time a game missed all of our expectations. Like, we were all kind of surprised with what we got out of it. Like, this is a game about supers with ridiculous powers, over the top combinations. It's kind of a somewhat chaotic free for all where things don't always make sense and things don't always work out the way you planned. And you get that feel of like an unbalanced superhero role-playing game where you've got like the Hulk in there with Aunt May, not because Aunt May eventually, whatever. You have the Hulk and Spider-Man in there. And you're like, well, of course, the Hulk's huge and massive, and Spider-Man's he's kind of neat and does some web things. And in a way, like, the game kind of ties into that, right? You can end up with this epic cosmic hero that's just like a point-scoring machine, or you can end up with someone that didn't quite work out quite so well, but is kind of quirky. Now, if you dig games where you can get lucky and just end up with this like massive, super overpowered combo where you score more than 80 points more than anyone else, and everyone else at the table's cool going, wow, look at what you did that game. My gosh, you destroyed us. You're going to love Origin Story. The games are nice and quick, which is nice. So one of the things I would complain, if you played more rounds, if the game was longer, like it's under an hour. If you were playing for 2 hours and your gap kept getting further and further and further, I would have a bigger complaint. But honestly, for like, it's not quite at the quick filler level, but it's there. It's in the quick gameplay. Yeah, okay, that one game was unbalanced, but the next one's probably going to be fine. Or maybe I'll be the one that gets the really cool combo.
Yeah, and I feel like I've been ripping on this game, and I actually enjoyed it. And I would happily play it any time and not avoid, someone breaks this out, I'm not going to be like, yeah, I'm got better things to do. Am I going to be suggesting we play it? Possibly. I might even suggest we play it. So, like, I liked the game, but it just wasn't quite there for me either.
Yeah, I am so torn about this game because it's not the game I wanted. It's not the game I expected, but it's not at all a bad game. Like, I guess my issue comes from the fact that I wanted a superhero origin game where the trick-taking played into your development as a character. And while I didn't get that, I did get a really intriguing, hyper asymmetrical trick-taker with fantastic artwork.
So now I play the game many times at this point, a surprising number in a short period of time. And now that I know what to expect, I just go in embracing the randomness and the chaos.
Mhm.
I try interesting new combos. I know that some decision I make in round 1 isn't going to ruin my game in round 3. I have fun taking powers that mess with the other player's plans. I like trying to maximize it. So if I get the perfect hand, I can score a ton of points. I know not to pick one of my 2 superhero cards to be an end goal. Just know they're there. Maybe they'll affect a couple choices, but just play the cards I was dealt. Leave that decision for the final round. Pick the cards that fit that hand. Almost think of each power as all it really impacts is the hand you're about to play, and you'll probably enjoy the game more because that's where it's going to have that best impact. It's how can I maximize these cards with this hand right now, and then kind of see how it all falls together in the end. I no longer get frustrated when another player comes up with a killer combo.
So for me, it's the event cards. There's this massive event card deck, and you're only going to use one of them each game. And they're wildly different. So that third round, every game is going to be just this wild card if you don't know what to expect. And that is a large part of the fun for me.
The other thing I found, knowing that this is this chaotic superhero mashup with all kinds of powers and gear and stuff going on, that I've been able to, I'm selling the game better. It's become more popular at our public play events once I started to call out this randomness. I'm like, hey, you want to play the superhero game where you play a bunch of trick takers and you get powers to mess with the tricks and try to score points? You can be a hero or a villain. And I sell it that way instead of saying, hey, do you want to play a game about creating a superhero origin story where you play a trick-taking game and you try to lead yourself to creating proper goals? And that's just not what this game is. I sell it as this fun, random, chaotic trick-taking game, and people are really into that and love it when they play it because they don't have the mismatched expectations that we had going in.
Right. And I mean, the extreme asymmetry is really the beauty part here.
Yeah, to me, it's almost more than origin story. It's, do you want to build a hero?
Yeah, Hero Builder Workshop. It's the Mighty Men and Monster Machine where you're. That'd be actually a cool.
Definitely.
Touch. So I got to say, if you're looking for a tactical strategic trick taker where you're going to, use your skills of card counting and plan your plays many tricks or hands ahead, this is not the game for you. This isn't a game where each hand is a puzzle to be solved, or a game where the most skilled player is going to win most of the time. And in this case, the luck has a lot to do with it. Well, yes, smart play is still rewarded. You can't just toss random cards. You got to play smartly, but you can't outsmart the luck of the draw.
Well, that's it for our look at Origin Story from Stonemaier Games. While it wasn't what any of us expected, there's a rather unique and enjoyable trick taker there that can be a lot of fun if you embrace the chaos.
Now, we love trick-taking games for traditional to very unique modern games like Origin Stories. There are a ton of trick-taking games out there, and I know there are more in the pipeline even now with more coming out next year. What is your favorite modern trick-taking game? What is something we should look to check out?
Tell us all about it. Leave a comment wherever you found this review. Send an email to mo@tabletopbellhop.com, or best of all, start up a conversation over on our Discord at discord.tabletopbellhop.com.
Well, that was the double bell.
That means our shift's coming to an end, and we're going to have to lock the lobby doors.
Before we start locking things down, let's take a moment to thank some of our Tabletop Bellhop Patreon patrons, all of whom are awesome.
We've got 2 new patrons to welcome this month. First of which is Gregory F. Thank you, Gregory.
Next up, we have Matt Dawson. Welcome and thank you, Matt.
Yeah, welcome and thank you both so much for supporting our show. Diane T, thanks, Ma.
Roger Malosh, thank you.
Kat and Tori, welcome. Thank you to Kator.
Jeff and Sheila Seuss, thank you for our topic tonight, though I know you weren't really submitting it as a topic for the discussion, but thanks for giving us something to talk about, and I hope you found some cool stuff at our bazaar.
While we've hit the end of this podcast episode, you can always find us at tabletopbellhop.com. Be sure to subscribe on your podcatcher of choice and set us to auto-download so you never miss an episode. While you're there, be sure to leave us a review.
Now, I do want to have a quick shout out and thank you to everyone who did some holiday shopping with us, and a reminder that we will be continuing to update our holiday deals for tabletop gamers lists throughout the month. You can find that at tabletopbellhop.com/tabletop-deals.
And as always, our content is fueled by your questions. Send us your game night conundrums. No question is too silly or too serious. If you have a question you'd like us to answer, you can email questions@tabletopbellhop.com, or you can go over to the website and click on Ask the Bellhop, or you are always welcome to hit us up on any social media where you can find us pretty much everywhere as Tabletop Bellhop, one word.
That's all for us tonight.
For the Tabletop Bellhop Gaming Podcast, I'm Sean.
I'm Deanna.
And I'm Mo.
Thank you.
And game